me. And I'm going to invite Matua Mike to open our hui and welcome our guests.
Kia ora no tātou. Mihi atu ki a koutou, me tō mātou kaumātua manahuri Rex, tēnā anō koe ka hoki mai ki te tare nei. Nō reira me inoi, e pā ka huri mātou ki a koe i tēnei ahi, mana ki tia ia mātou, e kōreo rero ngā mea pā ana ki te tai au. Aho ko te rere ke o ngā whakaaro ki te tiki i te tehi, ko te tumana ko te ngāka ka taitarangi maare ki a mātou ki rungi tēnei tūmo mō kōro. Nō reira e pā i tēnei wā, ka huri o mātou whakaaro ki a rātou ku rupeke atu ki te otarai. Nō reira koutou, aho ko ka whiturangi tia, ka hore mātou ware hi o koutou. Hare atu ki rungi tō mātou arawa. Nō reira koutou te hunga ora tēnā no tātou.
Amen.
Tuatahi ki a koe te kai whakarite Matua Mike, tēnā koe. Kia koutou katoa huri noi te whare. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. So we'll get straight into it. Have we got any apologies?
Councillor Van Beek may join us in line for a short period.
Great. No one else? Okay, thank you. Do we have to pass things on?
I'm going to pass.
Yeah, second. Whakaai tātou.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, on to housekeeping. I'm going to read this out so I don't miss anything. This meeting is being live streamed on Council's Facebook page and recorded for viewing at a later date on our YouTube channel. In an earthquake, you'll know what to do, but drop cover and hold. If the shaking is long or strong, when shaking subsides, leave the building through the nearest exits, which are over here, and proceed immediately toward Napier Hill, which is there, along Dalton Street to Tiffin Park, continuing up the steps to Cameron Road. Evacuation: if an emergency alarm sounds, immediately evacuate the building through the nearest exit and proceed to the assembly area on the grass at the corner of Dalton and Vautier Streets. Emergency exits are clearly signposted. For our visitors, wharepaku are located down the hall to the right of this chamber entrance. And then just moving on, if we've got any conflicts of interest today. We don't have any real decision items, but yes, Martin.
Oh, look, thank you, Chair. Just out of abundance of caution, I have been involved in submissions on the National Direction Program, representing some entities that have got a different perspective than the Council, and out of, as I say, abundance of caution, just to signal that, but it's not a decision item, as long as people are aware.
Well done. And I think that goes for most of the PSGEs who've also made submissions. Thank you for that. Any other conflicts of interest? No? Ka pai. The other admin matter we've got is our minutes from the meeting on the 14th of May, and I don't believe I was here. I think I was sick or away. So the minutes of that meeting have been circulated prior, and we'll take them as read and confirmed. Whakaai tātou? Everybody agrees? We need to move it. Sorry, Haniwai. Seconder, someone who was here. Thanks, Jenny. Whakaai tātou? Everybody agree? Thank you. Okay, now on to the interesting part. I'd like to welcome again Rex to our midst, someone very familiar with the Regional Council and sadly with this ongoing issue. So Rex, the time is over to you. We've allocated roughly 15 minutes, so that includes time for questions, so I'll leave it over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I really appreciate that. And thank you, everybody, for welcoming me here to talk about the subject, which everybody knows is very close to my heart. I really appreciate the time that you're giving me. Many of you will know that I've been involved with the fruit growing industry for a long time. I started as a teenager pruning in Twyford Road and bought my first orchard in 1972. So that gives you one pretty good indication of how long I've been around. My father and my brother were fruit growers. It's fair to say that I've spent my life in this industry and I really love it. I've done a lot of things that I'm really proud of, helping move this industry forward, and it's definitely my kaupapa to continue to do that. I do not want to see this industry damage itself or be part of any part of that. So this is a great industry. It's been nominated by its international peers as the best industry internationally in the world. I'm talking about the fruit growing industry. So they only 1 year did they not get nominated. So it's strange that in this matter of open fires burning, they're so behind the rest of the world. And even worse, they would risk the environmental integrity of their product. It's quite amazingly stupid. So, having said that, I'll just go straight on. I have a whole bunch of photos. I have people all over Hawke's Bay in strategic spots that take photos. There is a ground swell of people that think that this is just outrageous behaviour. So I'm just going to show, this happens every day on the Heretaunga Plains. You just don't see it, and some days are a lot worse. This was a particularly bad day, 22nd of May this year. All these photos are from this year. This is, as I say, a particular bad day. Fires on the Heretaunga Plains. These fires are mostly caused by fruit and grape growers redeveloping their orchards and burning the old trees. You wouldn't think that if you had read the Regional Council's view in the paper this morning. So I challenge you to go and read it, because they're saying it's a totally different thing. The main culprits here are fruit growers and vine and wine growers. The smoke from these fires often drifts across the Heretaunga Plains and is very dangerous to people's health. Also, I apologise, I'm just getting over the flu. I'm totally over it now, but I'm still a little bit croaky. In regard dangerous to people's health, nobody disagrees on this. Nobody with half a brain doesn't tell you this smoke is really dangerous to people's health. This practice is banned in Europe and most other Western countries, including China. One time I was driving through China and a lady rang me from Havelock North and said there's smoke everywhere in Havelock North, and you couldn't see a fire in China because you're not allowed to do this in China. Despite this and the evidence and accepted health risks, growers are currently permitted to do this on the Heretaunga Plains. This is a picture of the same fire. As I say, I have hundreds of pictures and I didn't have to use it, but I wanted to show just how extensive, this was actually 2 fires, how extensive the smoke was over the western part of Hastings and entirely covering Havelock North. And when you're under these fires, you often can't see it. You have to be high to see the smoke. So when you're under it, sometimes I'm in Havelock North and I think, it's a bit foggy or a bit smoky, but it's actually this. The fine particles contained in the smoke above PNT are carcinogenic. All the smoke, which is difficult to see when you're under it, contains these dangerous particles. The smoke is more dangerous to young people, elderly people, and those with respiratory issues. This is confirmed by all of our health professionals in Hawke's Bay and overseas. And Nick, thank you for attending today. I really appreciate that. People that know how dangerous this smoke is. Nobody, not even the growers, deny that these fine particles are not dangerous. This is on the 25th of May, a fire that was in Lawn Road, and it was drifting right across the bay towards Napier, covered Clive completely, and was drifting into Napier. I rang the pollution hotline. I must admit, I ring the pollution hotline all the time, and I have to say that the young people that work in the pollution hotline are really wonderful. They used to ring me back. They don't now lately, but they do go to the fires and they do their best job that they possibly can. Orchard fires. Growers are currently able to legally light these fires, which is quite incredible, really. Growers don't have to burn. They don't have to do this, as they have other options, and many of them take their options and do not burn. I would say probably it might even be up to half the growers are not burning at the moment, and they're doing other things. The options are slightly more expensive and take more time, but they don't cause this massive smoke pollution. The growers that do burn do it because it's cheaper for them to pass the pollution and health risk over to the rest of us on the Heretaunga Plains. This is no different to factories in Bangladesh or in Vietnam that are polluting their regions. It's no different. This is a fire on the 28th of April that was to the east of Havelock North, and you can see the enormous drift. This is a single fire that was drifting over Havelock North, and you can see at the point of Havelock North they would just think it was a bit hazy. This fire is a particularly good one. There's some other ones because it shows the effect of the inversion layer. So this smoke is often, more than often, mostly captured under the inversion layer and so it doesn't go into the atmosphere, which everyone suspects it does. And that's why fires on the Heretaunga Plains are particularly dangerous, because of the inversion layer. Airsheds. The council, your council, has created airsheds to protect major residential areas from this smoke. The airsheds are designated by lines drawn on a map. When I was here in the council, I raised this issue, but it's such a ridiculous issue. Unfortunately, the smoke that drifts in the air doesn't recognise these lines on the ground. It's a complete and utter nonsense. And quite significantly, only 4 marae are in the airshed. There is the airshed. You can get that on your own website. The fire that we're talking about, that I'm going to talk about in a minute, was just outside the airshed, but drifted completely into the airshed. And from my perspective, it doesn't matter where you light the fire, if it drifts over the airshed, the same effect. If your property is in the airshed, you can't burn outdoors from May to the 31st of August unless you are a fruit grower. Only growers are allowed to burn, and by definition pollute our air with dangerous smoke within the airshed. This is another fire. I haven't dated it. I don't know why I didn't do that, which shows you just how extensive and how pervasive the inversion layer is. So this grower lights his fire and he thinks he's just lighting a little fire, but actually the smoke goes up and went both ways in this event, covering all the houses and all the, and it went also into Hastings as well. This is an interesting fire. This is not interesting fire, interesting smoke. This photograph was taken on the Napier Hill by the ex-CEO of the Regional Council, James Palmer, who's now the Secretary for the Environment. I hope he doesn't mind me mentioning his name. He didn't seem to care. He's tough enough to take it. This smoke, actually, he was worried it closed the airport. It drifted from the Heretaunga Plains over Ahuri. This was the one where somebody here was silly enough to say this was fog. This was not fog. This photograph was taken at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's smoke. It is a huge smoke cloud drifted out of the Heretaunga Plains and over Ahuriri, and was a total disgrace. People rang me from the Napier Hill saying that they could smell the smoke. I put this picture in. This is an illegal fire, so not really counted. And these legal fires don't happen very often now, and you can find big fines for lighting fires like this. But I put it in because it still happens once a month. Still happens. The pollution hotline guys will close this fire down like this pretty quickly, and it's probably not relevant to this conversation, except that it still occurs. This is a series of fires, and that's one of the problems. Growers ring me and say, "Oh, Rex, I just started a little fire, you know." My mate yesterday, I abused him because he wrote it was only a small fire. But sometimes I go up the peak and there are 7 fires. 7 little fires. And in the newspaper, that was the comment from someone here. So these fires covered the entire plains. You can see the extent of the pollution right across Hastings and Havelock North. And there's more than one fire here. You can spot more than one fire. This fire is my neighbour. we don't do audio, my wife talks here, so I'll talk to it. So my neighbour lit the fire, so it came straight up, straight over, there it is, there's my property there, straight over my property. Dropped ash all over the property, we had to clean both the cars. We rang the pollution hotline, they came out straight away. They didn't close it down. They didn't come and see us, so we couldn't show them the ash, but I guess they're just getting a bit tired of the complaints. But so that's an illegal fire because it came over my property and dropped ash all over the place. This is the fire that was in the newspaper. This is the worst one that I have seen. It's on the corner of Riversley Road and Longlands Road, just outside the air sheds. But, you know, that's an oxymoron because the air shed's about half a kilometre away and the smoke was drifting straight into the air shed. I took this photo myself, straight into, it completely covered Riversley Road. It was actually dangerous to drive, so much smoke. And this is the fire that over 2 days activated the pollution, what do you call that? It activated our
air standards.
The air standards pollution.
Standards.
So, you know, the person that lit this fire, he got away with it. I went there just recently and it's all just bare land now. So as far as he's concerned, he didn't do anything. He got a $300 fine. It would have cost him a lot more to mulch. So it was really good value for him to do that. But he had a devastating effect on all the people, schools, old people, just everybody that he affected. So from my perspective, what must happen? These fires need to stop. They're having a negative effect on the health of our community. If a grower wants to redevelop his orchard, then he must do it without polluting our air. You can't just stand there and say, oh, I need to redevelop my orchard and the best way to do it is to burn, because the consequences, it's just ridiculous. So I can burn and other people are going to suck in the risk. The existing rules are weak, pounded to a powerful industry. The rules are ignored by many growers because they're so weak. The rules are difficult to enforce. Fines are minimal and rarely applied. This is my summary, really. I will continue to work to ensure that the horticulture industry in Heretaunga remains vibrant and internationally competitive. But it's important that they keep their social licence. They do this by being environmentally responsible and need to care about the community that they're part of. And it seems they need a little help. As long as they can get away with it, some of them will. And whilst I wouldn't think a majority are being responsible, but certainly a large section. And it's actually in your hands. You're probably going to, your executive team probably going to say it's not in your hands, but I think it is in your hands. It is in your hands to make a statement and toughen up on this. The people in this room are the ones who have the power to stop this pollution. And you will do, if you do it, you'll do the industry a favour. Because can you imagine if one of their buyers from Munich or wherever comes out and hits, as he's driving around, hits one of these fires that you can't do in Ireland or you can't do in Britain or Scotland or France. So, thank you very much. Did I run out of time for questions?
No, you're great. You're great on time. Thanks, Rex. Can you just go back to your previous slide, Rex, where you said what the existing rules are and how the issues you've highlighted there? I just wondered if either Nick or Katrina were able to give our committee a bit of context around
the rules.
the rules, yeah, the issues that Rex has highlighted and what can be done about it.
I'll let Katrina speak to the rules as they currently exist, but yeah, there's certainly a challenge
Belinda?
of enforcement.
I'm going to ask Belinda and Kathleen Kosniak to come up, who have for many, many years worked on our rules regarding air quality in Hawke's Bay. They'll be able to do that better than I can.
Lovely. Over to you two. Thank you.
Kia ora. So we have a couple of options here. We can either answer some questions, or I have done up some slides of a presentation we did to RPC back in 2020. So I can run you through those if you'd like.
Does anyone have questions, or are we okay to go straight? I think we're okay to go straight to having your information shared, so slides is fine.
Okay.
Just conscious of time, that's all.
Can't worry about that.
Cutting my wife.
I can send to you.
We can do it later.
X.
Just through the chair, are we allowed copies of your presentation and
Yeah,
because
I'm
the
really happy to,
photos are really quite
yeah, they're compelling. They're compelling. So if I got everyone's email address, I'll email it to everybody. It has to go through one of those fancy email systems.
I can organise it.
And will you?
Yes.
Can we do that?
Yes,
We'll get a copy.
how about-
Happy to. We'll get a copy and circulate it to the
yeah,
committee.
that'd be great. That would be our action item, thank you, Rex.
That's. Oh, yeah.
Kind of have to drag it.
Kia ora, Rex, through the chair. Rex, kia ora, Tania Eden. Just
Tania.
while we're waiting, I just want to know, has this been raised before, even in your tenure?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
We did a presentation to the RPC, but it was too technical, and we got too technical. We got into the health risks. It's simple enough to say there is serious health risk, and we can ask Nick if he wants to confirm that. He used to be the Director General of Health, and so he has a good understanding of these things. But we messed it up, really.
Okay, well,
Okay.
let's go to Belinda and just understand what is it that we currently say in our rules.
Okay, so I've just done up a quick few slides of the presentation that we did back in 2020. I'll just cover what the rules say, the background, problem scope that we presented in 2020, and then any questions. Okay, so what do our rules say? Currently, our rules restrict outdoor burning in winter in our air sheds, except for the hort sector. They can carry out this burning for disease control and for redevelopment material. Our rules also permit outdoor burning outside the air sheds all year round, subject to conditions. The intent of these rules really is that they sort of minimise the effects of the smoke and the PM concentrations. So a bit of background, this has been a consistent issue that's probably been raised over the last 10 to 15 years. And there's concerns really around how effective our rules are in managing these outdoor burns. In 2020, we presented some options to RPC. And then at the time, because we were progressing through the Kotahi plan change, we decided to address it through that. So in terms of the problem scope back in 2020, this is just sort of built into what we know, what we don't know. What we know is that these smoky fires do cause a nuisance and they can have health effects. This is largely because of the PM10 PM2.5. It's inhaled quite deep into your lungs, and it causes asthma attacks, lost productivity days, and elevated lung cancer. In terms of the where most of these sources are coming from, it's mostly from domestic fires, but outdoor burning has quite a big contribution to that, and there are the transport emissions too. Back in 2020, the other thing that happened was that the World Health Organization did update their air quality guidelines, and they actually found that actually some of these health effects are happening in such a shorter period than initially thought, up until about 1 hour sometimes. Kathleen can probably expand on that if you have any questions. We also know, again, I've just picked up these slides from 2020, we also know that our RRMP rules are really outdated and outdoor burning does need to be addressed. Back in 2020, we saw quite a big increase in smoke complaints coming from around the area, and that was due to the hort industry and lifestyle blocks carrying out burning. We also know that when you do burn wet vegetation, you have quite low temperature, and that does cause smouldering fires, and that's what happens when you see the redeveloped material. If it's not dry, they don't have a particularly long period to dry it off, and then if it's lit, it causes what we've just seen, Rex, some of the photos across the Heatherton plain. We also knew back in 2020 that there now are viable options for these redeveloped materials. So it's not a case of just needing to or having to burn all the time. What we didn't know back in 2020 was whether burning was still necessary for disease control. That is different from orchard redevelopment. We didn't know the costs associated with large-scale mulching. We didn't know if the exemptions in Rule 19E, which is effectively what is a permitted activity, which Rex was saying allows them to burn, the port sector to burn during this time. Is it being misused? It does have a bunch of conditions on it. It's meant to stop the PM10 and the smoke really having a major effect. But I think that some of the met conditions that this burning is taking place in could be not being undertaken in the right manner. We also didn't know whether this is a region-wide issue across the whole of Hawke's Bay or if it's more a Napier and Hastings issue. So that's pretty much, they're the slides we presented in 2020 and then just did some RPC direction or questions if you'd like to have any.
So just before we go to questions, am I right in understanding then that the proposed solution was part of the plan change that didn't proceed and isn't proceeding at the moment because we've all been told we can't make plan changes other than natural hazards?
We don't have a solution yet, but it was meant to be addressed through the Kotahi plan change to come back with some options to RPC to say, hey, look, how can we actually, do we need to tighten our rules up? Do we need to prohibit outdoor burning? Do we need to do a bunch of different things so that we never got to that phase because of it was all put into the Kotahi plan?
Thank you.
Through you, Chair, I think just to clarify, at the moment, the government has said pretty much no to any further plan changes, except natural hazards, and that's the challenge that I think we face. I don't think there's any disagreement with the issues that Mr. Graham's talked to the committee about. The challenge is what can you, beyond our current compliance with rules, we've got a real challenge about plan changes at the moment.
PowerPoint, open up to any questions. Dan.
Kia ora Tanya, kia ora Rex.
Okay, thank you.
I realise that you're passionate about this issue, but also that you've been passionate about the issue at a time when you were sitting in the chair as regional council, so you appreciate probably better than most that this problem has to be managed in the context of our regional rules. And so personally I'm confident that council at the moment is managing in terms of the regional rules. So I think the question is, ought the regional rules to change, and change to what and when? And so my specific question is to staff, is there capacity to work with the industry on a code of practice or some other work to clarify what the rules ought to be, knowing that we can't pass a plan change at the moment, but still could we be engaging with the industry to actually figure out where the rules should be? Thank you. Is there organisational capacity and interest in doing that?
Through you, Chair. Certainly my team and I have initiated some conversation, albeit at the behest of Rex here to my left. And part of that conversation that Rex and I and the compliance team had was about how we connect with the industry to talk about what is already well understood, well-known good practice and best practice guidelines. They already exist in the industry. You will remember, or you might remember, that back in the time that Belinda is talking about, when the rules were initially put in place, this organisation spent a lot of time, effort and money providing subsidies for residential homeowners to put in new fires and the old fires that they couldn't use anymore. There was a big program in place the Healthy Homes program was put in place. So huge amounts of effort and expense went into replacing that at the same time as we worked with industry on those rules about burning in the airsheds. They were part of those rules at the time, and good practice guidelines were established at that time. I understand what you're saying in terms of what the rules should be going forward. Given where the central government is currently at in terms of RM reform and stopping us from doing any plan changes on these matters at this point in time, I think our best approach at this point is to engage with the industry and let them know that they are not operating in accordance with best practice, and in some instances are actually not even meeting the rules. So I think that's where we'll start, Councillor Harding, until such time as we have guidance from central government on what their approach will be in terms of revised air quality standards, if they are intending to make them, because that's the first thing we need to know.
Can I just go to Jock online?
Thanks, Chair. Look, my question's quite aligned to Zand, but as part of that, I'd just like to note that, if this was something like a dangerous stretch of road that was a threat to life, as burning is, then we would do something about it promptly. And so if we do have a bit of a handbrake on at the moment because of the government position on RM reforms, well, all good. But my suggestion would be that we should be getting ourselves in as good a shape as we possibly can to have better rules in place as soon as we can, once we're able to do that. And so that's certainly engaging with industry and whatever else we need to do.
Thanks, Jock. Another question, Jenny.
Kia ora. My question is around what is the point of compliance and policy if the change of political influence puts everything on pause? So having another discussion when you've quite clearly said, Katrina, that people are clearly breaching the standards, business as usual until we're directed otherwise, what do we do about it? So, and if we do nothing, then it needs to be formalised in the reason why. If it's a political driver, that's fine. But we need to have a clear, I think as a council, a clear steer, that's what we're charged to do in this committee, or recommend to the council on this issue. There's no doubt from when Rex brought it up in his tenure and the presentation here that it impacts our world, the people of Hawke's Bay's world. And best practice breaches, policy breaches, what are we proposing to do about it? So that's having another conversation with the sector. You've already stated quite clearly there are clear breaches, they're breaching their own best practice guidelines. So coming out with a statement, I agree with Rex, coming out with a statement I think is important at this time. Otherwise, any decision we make prior to the next elections, because we don't know who the government is then, we're dancing to somebody else's tune as opposed to the residents of Hawke's Bay's care and wellbeing. So I'm proposing that. Secondly, which is a secondary sort of a question, there was mention of subsidised replacement of fireplaces, or there was support of some sort to help that. And my question to the council was, did it ever reach Central Hawke's Bay? Because we have the largest orchard in the southern hemisphere. We have farming communities, and is there an equitable approach to subsidised support to meet the policies of the council?
Thanks, Jenny. Can you answer that, Katrina?
Can I just answer the first part about compliance? So my key message here is that we do have rules in place, and we do enforce those rules. Whether we take enforcement action or not is not a political decision. It goes through what is called an enforcement decision group that is independent, first and foremost, of politicians, but also of the chief executive, who makes a final call on prosecutions. Key to taking enforcement action is timeliness. So it's absolutely great that these photos are taken, but they're often sent to Rex after some time, and then we might get the photo the next day. Many of those photos we haven't received in a timely manner in order for us to take enforcement action on those fires. Since meeting with Rex, our enforcement team of 5 are now doing proactive and preemptive monitoring in the mornings. So we are going out early in the morning and we are checking, monitoring, observing, spotting fires that don't meet our rules, and we are taking action. In the last 5 years, and you'll be able to see that in our previous compliance reports, Hawke's Bay Regional Council was one of the regional councils that took one of the highest numbers of prosecutions in the country. A large portion of those were for prohibited burning fires. So that's where somebody is burning illegal items. So this council has taken a hard line on enforcement. And so we will continue to do so. In terms of moving forward, we absolutely are working with industry and will work with industry on revising those rules. But first and foremost, we need to understand where the government is going to set the limit in terms of air quality and the standards that this region will need to meet before we can then start to think about how and what changes we need to make in our airsheds and in our rules. In terms of Central Hawke's Bay, I don't believe they have an urban airshed because their air quality is currently met. Is that correct?
We have done some what we call screening monitoring, so it's not with
You
our...
need to come forward so they can hear you.
Are you talking about Central Hawke's Bay?
Central Hawke's Bay was a question about the healthy homes and why not.
We have done some what we call screening monitoring, so it's with lower cost equipment. It's not quite the regulatory grade standard that we use, say, in Napier and Hastings, but it gives us an indication of whether or not the standards might be met, and if we felt that it was a grey area, then we'd go on with the higher grade instruments. So we've done it's actually mounted to about 5.5 years of this different screening monitoring, and it was been mostly Waipukurau, but also for 1 year in Waipawa. Throughout that 5 years, this equipment just picked up one exceedance of the National Environmental Standard that was a limit of 50 micrograms per metre cubed, average over 24 hours. And you can have one exceedance in a calendar year in 12 months, and we recorded one over around about 5.5 years.
So my question around Central Hawke's Bay is, did we qualify for any support?
So in terms of Central Hawke's Bay, it would have qualified, as did whole of New Zealand at the time, for funding from the government, which was through ECA, the Energy Efficiency Conservation Authority. In terms of the funding from Hawke's Bay Regional Council, we put in a targeted rate into Napier and Hastings, and so that money from the targeted rate went straight back into Napier and Hastings. And that wasn't paid by others across the region.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I'm just conscious of time, and we've got 3 more questions. Hanewai,
And I'll be-
Sophie, and then Tony.
Thank you. I'll be very short, and just thank you, Rex, for bringing this to our attention again. And I know this whole year you've been sending me and a whole lot of other people these photos. So it has been at the back of our minds as well. Okay, so I'm just looking, Chair, at the RPC direction up here, because what can we do about it from here on out? And I'd like us really to have staff actually investigate these 3 points and bring some of that work back, and invite Rex actually, so that you can see how we can progress some of this stuff given the limitations that we all have at the moment. But yeah, just really want to thank you, Rex. So not a question, but I support us to keep investigating what this means and what we can do.
And I'll keep sending you photos.
Thank you. Sophie?
Do I have a
Kia
line
ora.
up?
Thank you, through you, Chair. I wonder, Nick or Katrina, if one of the options to investigate for a quick one might simply be the fine, if the fine was much, much higher.
No, through you, Chair, I think we would love to have much higher fines. The fines are set under the legislation, so we have no ability to change them.
Okay, thank you. Then
They-
last,
They need to be doubled, but that's
still not enough.
yet to flow through.
Yeah, kia ora. Thank you.
Sorry, and last question, Tanya.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of things I was going to raise a punitive side as well, but I just saw it's through the RMA, so we all know where that's sitting at the moment and how hard that would be. And also, maybe we should look at it in a different way, because, I mean, we have significant health concerns in the Hawke's Bay region and high incidences of bronchitis amongst our tamariki, and so that's huge for us. So maybe we look at it with, health as well, and you mentioned healthy homes, but I mean, this might be something Health New Zealand wants to have a look at too. I mean, I don't know the stats around it, but to acknowledge your team, Katrina, who was doing it, because I just had a look and there were 80 complaints received and 70 infringement notices issued in the 23-24 year. So, I mean, that's good that that's happening. And I guess from my perspective is this has been around a long time, even in Rex's time, and we probably would like to do something. I know from our perspective, members of the Tangata Whenua and RPC, this has huge impact on health concerns for our people, and I know it would probably be, some of it may be coming from this area, so we'd like maybe a different look at it from a health perspective. So kia ora.
Can I just
Tanya.
add to that, please? Tanya, I know you're going to close it down.
Sorry, before then, because he asked very nicely with his
Tiny.
hands, very tiny question.
Only, it's going to be 4 years before we're in a position to do new plans under the new resource management system. In my view, we've got bylaw making powers. Could the options that come back to us, as we've done to protect our stock banks, look at a bylaw to protect against the nuisance in an interim way, pending that further reform?
Helpful, thank you, Martin. Sorry, very quickly, Michelle, then we need to cut it off.
Good point, Martin. And the other thing is about just reiterating what Tony is saying. And I, as a mother of asthmatic children, if you've ever seen your child have an asthma attack and they're trying to take a breath, and if that's the cause of it, it can take them out. Yep. How many lives are you responsible for your burning of green wood? And I'd love to see the statistics when you look at that air shed and respiratory conditions. I know there's a health expert here. Just a bit of to have a look at the statistics for hospital A&E or hospital admissions, if they are to do with that sort of, they've inhaled that smoke as opposed to they've got pneumonia or something, so it just really makes me anxious because a lot of tangata whenua, a lot of, Māori children have a lot of respiratory conditions and they suffer from this, and asthma can take you like that.
Thank you. So, thank you, everybody.
Did you want me to respond?
Yes. Only if it's very short, I don't mind at all.
I do
Thank
have
you.
some recent statistics.
Come close.
Yeah. So the most recent study we have on this is the National...
Sorry, could you just introduce who you are, just so everyone knows?
Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Nick Jones, I hope, Director of Public Health previously, but currently a Medical Officer of Health here in Te Mātua Māui. So the data we have is from the most recent is from New Zealand Health and Air Quality Study that was published in 22, but it is from earlier data from 2016. But that study noted that air pollution due to human activity, which is fires and motor vehicles, and of course the orchard burnings tied up into that, was 158 premature deaths, 579 hospitalisations due to heart, circulation and respiratory conditions, and 518 childhood asthma cases per year in Hawke's Bay. So they are quite significant numbers.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so
Tanya,
serious
can I just
problem.
have a quick response to everybody? No, very quick, sorry.
And then that's it. Yeah, thank you.
I just have a quick response. So here's a fact for you. All the wood in orchards that is burnt up to 1st of August, even after, is green. It's all green wood. Let's not trick ourselves that they are not in breach of their own standards. It's all green. They cut the tree down and 3 months later they burn it. The reason they do is they want to plant. And then they've got to put chloropicrin in, which is banned everywhere else in the world as well. But that's another issue with chemicals. But my final point is this. You know, we can make every excuse in the world why we don't do something. But this is harming people's health. People that are already sick with respiratory things, and especially our kids. You know, we just can't hide behind and continue to hide behind, oh, we can't do that because this is this reason and this other reason. You know, I mean, I think Martin's suggestion of a bylaw is something. You guys are now the experts.
Absolutely.
There's something you can do to bring this to the fore and stop this nonsense happening. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you listening to me.
Thank you,
I'm
everyone.
now.
Thank you, Rex.
Thanks, Rex.
Thank you, Tim.
Rex.
Thanks, everyone, for that. Okay, we'll move on to our next item, which is item 5. Do we need to?
It's come through as a record.
Yeah, you need.
Okay. All right, so I don't have that recommendation there.
Just
So
to receive.
a recommendation to receive Rex's deputation. Tanya, as a mover, seconder. Michelle, thank you. Whakaai tātou? Aye. Kia ora. Okay, on to our next item, natural hazards and climate change plan development update. Thank you, Nicola.
Thanks.
And team.
Alrighty.
Thank you.
Bye, Rex.
Thank you.
See you, Rex. Don't forget the PowerPoint.
Kia ora koutou, everyone. First item from us today is a information item. Just to give you an update on where we are at with our natural hazards and climate change planning work that we were doing following your decision in the last meeting in May. There has already been a little bit of a conversation about the plan stop that's come out from the government. Saul will go into that in a little bit more detail as he runs us through the slides. But this is just to really let you know what we've been doing behind the background and how work has been progressing. So I will hand over to Saul.
Kia ora koutou katoa, ko Saul Gutzel tōku ingoa. Kia ora anō, good to be back here again. Thank you for introducing the paper, Nicola. I will take the paper as read, though we do have the slides behind us which I'll talk to, and once we go through those, we'll open up to at the end. I'd just like to begin with the red box down the bottom corner there, because this slide largely talks to development of the natural hazards chapter, but there was also some work that we need to do developing the climate change chapter, which we've just noted there is on pause for now due to the government's commitment to the plan stop, which we'll get to in slide 3. As far as the natural hazards chapter goes, this just is trying to illustrate the multiple inputs that we've had to date in the development of the chapter. So we've had feedback from previous RPC wānanga that we had late last year and earlier this year that we held on multiple topics at that time. One particular was natural hazards. We've had potential national direction come out through the potential national policy statement for natural hazards, so alignment with that terminology. We've got the recommendations from the Hawke's Bay Independent Flood Review that we've had to look at to see if we're aligning with that. Then we've had feedback from our JTOG hui that we've had multiple ones. We've had online and in person where we've looked at, I've put their specific mana whenua provisions, draft provisions, but we also looked at all the provisions in general. And then we've had multiple hui with our city and district councils, so from Wairoa, Central Hawke's Bay, Napier City Council and HDC and Hastings District Council, and then we've had further targeted ones with Napier City Council and Hastings District Council, as they are both undertaking natural hazard related plan changes themselves. So we want to work quite closely with them to make sure we're not saying different things. So this slide is just a couple of speech bubbles talking to specific feedback that we received from our city and district councils altogether, but more specifically, of course, from Napier and Hastings. There was talk around not changing the current roles and responsibilities that are set out in our operative regional resource management plan under Chapter 8. rather stronger regional policy statement direction for them to hang their implementation within their district plans around managing natural hazards off. And feedback from the JTOG, my other notes over here, was they provided valuable feedback around integrating Mātauranga Māori into draft planning provisions, but also into the risk assessments and natural hazard resilience planning, and highlighting the key issues or make sure we're capturing key issues around the vulnerability of Māori communities, and managing, and for mana whenua to manage natural hazard risk in their own communities. So this slide is what Nicola preempted, kind of talks about the government's commitment to stopping councils from progressing new plan and regional policy statement reviews, changes or variations. This is what I touched on in the first slide. So the climate change chapter that we were developing unfortunately does not meet the automatic exemption, so we have paused that work. I have just placed a couple of exemptions on the right-hand side that are automatically there, so anything in relation to natural hazards, which our chapter is, so therefore can progress. And then there was a few other automatic exemptions listed that relate to government priorities around housing growth, urban development, urban intensification, some specific treaty obligations, and a few other, or private plan changes, a few other things. And lastly, there is also the ability to apply to the Minister to the Environment for a plan stop exemption to continue work. And then our last slide. So our next steps essentially are to continue to work with the JTOG and the territorial authorities. It's a very repetitive and iterative process to receive the feedback, go through what we've heard, incorporate what each group is telling us, try and develop that into policy, into draft policy, and then go back and say, is this correct? Are we in the right direction? And keep moving forward with that. But also we think that we need to propose a dedicated workshop for RPC governors to support the development of the chapter. We envisage coming with a draft RPS natural hazards chapter to bring, so we can get down into the policy and look at all the policy and look at perhaps potential options as well, where we might want to go harder or softer. And now I would open to any part.
Kia ora. Pātai, any questions?
The question.
Saul?
Kia ora, and thank you for the work you're doing in this area. And I guess it must be really hard when it's been dictated by central government in respect of these two particular areas, natural hazards and climate change. But it's nice to know that you can focus all your attention on this natural hazards area, I guess, at the moment. I just want to ask, we've got some amazing people from our PSGEs working with you on the JTOG. Can you tell me if our PSGs are receiving funding for this huge amount of resource that we're giving to the Regional Council to work through a lot of these areas?
Yeah, so earlier this year we made available kaupapa funding. So that funding was made available to all of the PSGEs to recognise their involvement in this process and to make sure that that was recognised fairly. So yes.
And was that specifically for a specific area? I know it was tagged for specific areas.
So initially we had some funding available in the previous financial year for freshwater. This kaupapa funding was to allow that work to be brought in to capture these other topics as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Sam?
Kia ora, Chair. And through you, I just want to try and understand the distinction between natural hazards and climate. So just bear with me. So I think we're in a space now where we're going towards a regional spatial plan. So I'm assuming that essentially when we're talking about natural hazards component of that, we're talking about hazard layers. Is that fair? So that would be a large component of the work that will go in. So I'm trying to understand whether those can be done effectively without a climate reference at all. So, and I guess the point is, are these going to be, is it historical information, or can it be casting forward? So can under the natural hazards work, can we incorporate future climate predictions without doing a full climate plan?
So, just to be very clear, although the way that the plan was devised was that we had a natural hazards chapter. That natural hazards chapter absolutely has climate change baked in and is integral and part of that. The climate change chapter that sat separate to that was more what you would kind of say pure climate change, so the emissions, the responses to that. So climate change, as it's related to natural hazards, is absolutely interwoven with the work that we're doing, and it has that exemption pathway through there.
Right, thank you. And look, Chair, if I can just follow up. Rolling on from that, the joint climate committee recently put out a climate risk assessment for the region, and one of the key findings of that was around the limitations of the existing hazard data that we have, that it's not standardised and there's a lot of gaps. I just wanted to check whether, as part of this work, there's a reference back to that climate technical advisory group, and we're joined up about looking at how we determine what our data gaps and how we plan to fix those over time.
So probably two parts answer to that question. The first is absolutely joined up with Amberley and the work that she's doing with that committee. We work really closely with her. She's been involved with the work that the team's been doing, so cross-pollination across there. And the second part of it is that, without getting into the nuts and bolts of the plan change, which hopefully we can do in a workshop with you, one of the provisions that we've worked on is very clearly focused on that data availability and making sure that we understand those hazards and also the implications of climate change scenarios on those hazards as well. So,
thank you.
Not a problem.
Jenny,
Kia ora. Appreciated the question and the answer to it. Natural hazards and climate. I'm asking questions around the reconciliation of our experiences with Cyclone Gabriel, and not so much the policies, but the plans going forward on how we can respond and get ahead of the curve as best we can. So I do acknowledge the challenges of writing this stuff in the current climate. However, I think we can turn it into good use as a good process of responding to people of Hawke's Bay after the cyclone. We've had a number of reviews, and I'm always asking, so what? And I think the work that you're doing in the natural hazard space is a response to the so what, sooner than later. So we don't have the luxury now of collecting data, spending a year reviewing and doing a report, developing a business plan and a strategy. Can't do that anymore. So I'd just encourage you to see if you can reconcile that with the Cyclone Gabriel stuff and see what actions, as opposed to policies, we can implement sooner than later. Kia ora.
Any response to that? No?
I was just going to say, through you, Chair, I think that the proposed national direction also supports what you were just saying, Jenny, around that they speak a lot about using best available information and not making councils go out and commission more and more and more work hoping for perfect, rather than using best available to actually get something done.
Great, thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, because I read through the paper and I saw that you're a key driver is Hawke's Bay Independent Flood Review, so that was good to see that. And you're working also with the Napier City Council and Hastings District Council, because we don't want duplication, so it's good to see that as well, so kia ora.
And one of the comments I just make on that is in the work that we've been doing with other officers, we have very early days raised some thinking about how could we potentially do this in alignment with the other councils to make sure that what we're doing and the timing potentially, or shared comms if that could be an option to make it look like a really holistic response to the challenges that we're facing.
Great. I had two questions myself. First one is, I didn't hear mention of Central Hawke's Bay. Have they been included in?
Yes, they have. Yep.
And the second one was the timing of workshops and whether the workshop or shops is going to happen this side of the election or after.
Yeah, so we'd be happy to work through that with you in governance and to see in terms of where we're at with our work, we could bring it back as kind of early as early September, but that would need to be worked through with governance and availability. So, yeah, can keep moving.
Anyway.
Kia ora, thank you. In terms of the regional spatial planning work done across councils, is that HBRC with other councils or JTOG with other councils?
So we've just done it with HBRC at this point, but I think we can foresee where we get in a little bit further that we'd want to kind of...
With the JTOG.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect.
Lovely. Okay. Komatu?
Oh, just through you, I just wanted to say this is an amendment to our operative RPS, so this is under the RMA, so we're not
In the
regional,
spatial, yeah.
not quite regional spatial planning, but definitely a lot of work moving in that direction.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, everybody. So the recommendation is that the RPC receives and notes the update and endorses the proposal to continue to develop the chapter and to amend the operative regional policy statement and to hold workshops on the draft chapter with ourselves. Can I have a mover, please? Thank you, Zan. Someone else? Tanya, thank you. Whakaai tātou? Aye. Kia ora. Thank you, team.
Lovely.
All right, so same team. Yeah. So we're moving on to National Direction Package, item 6. Update.
All right. Musical chairs. So this paper brings you formally the HBRC submission that we made on the National Direction Package that was presented. There was a very short turnaround on that. That's why at the time of writing the paper we were going through the process of putting the submission together, but it has since been submitted. So this is really just an overview of what was brought through in that package, and then where we have landed in terms of a position. The package was substantial. There were 2 new policy statements, 2 new environmental standards, plus amendments to 5 NPSs and 6 NESs. So that's a significant amount of work. Those proposals were basically driving 3 national priorities, one which was infrastructure transformation, 2 being primary sector expansion, and 3 being development acceleration. And so probably one of the key messages from this is that once all of these instruments come into play, we will be required to give them consideration through our consenting, but we won't be required to update our regional policy statements or RMA plans, and that's where the plan stop comes into play as well. But any future documents or changes must align with what these are signalling. So there's a bit of a dual timeline there in terms of this organisation of having to make sure that we were up to speed with these for consenting, but we'll have a longer horizon in terms of plan making. In the paper, you'll see that we have gone through the amendments instrument by instrument, given a brief explanation of them, and then those key issues that arose out of them. The submissions closed end of last week, I believe. Yes, and then we have, MFE have got 3 weeks to analyse them, so we're expecting that there will be a pretty quick turnaround time on this one, but happy to take any questions about any of that specifically.
Okay.
No, there's a lot in there.
Yes, there is a lot. Any questions for the team? I have one to start. I might have raised this with you before about the NES for granny flats and whether the proposed NES would allow granny flats to be located on Category 3 land.
We, in our submission, we didn't have details to that from what we received in terms of the document, the discussion document. In our submission back, both in Papakāinga and Granny Flats, we took the position that we needed to make sure that we weren't putting people in harm's way, and that applies to Granny Flats. So just because there is a property there, it shouldn't be automatic if there is a significant natural hazard risk.
Correct, because if they don't require consent,
Yeah.
then what's to stop them?
And I know that was supported by other regional councils across the sector as well, so.
Thank you. All for Granny Flats, just not in the wrong area.
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry,
Through
Saul.
you, Chair, I believe with the Granny Flats and the Papakāinga, district plan provisions that relate to natural hazards still prevail. So if our district or city councils create natural hazard rules that say this is an avoidance area prohibited zone, then that would apply over that area. But Granny Flats would not be,
But not under the current plans that they have.
not under the current plans, but
No, that's the issue.
yes,
Yeah.
yep.
So if they were to change their plans,
Yes.
then those forms of accommodation would have to be removed from those areas.
I don't think that any new rules coming into a district plan would have retrospective application. But knowing what I know about the district plan rules at the moment, it would have to be located on a residential piece of land, particularly in Heretonga in the first instance. We'd have to look at that.
I just know from HDC, we've had these discussions where it's ineffective to stop accommodation that doesn't require consent being located on Category 3 land, which is a nonsense, really, in my view. Sorry, other questions? Sophie?
Kia ora, thank you, through you, Chair. I'm really interested in the LUC classifications, the removal of 3, but then this idea of the modern reassessments. And 2 questions. One, how much more we find out about our special agricultural areas. Obviously, we'll be thinking about the Heretonga Plains within that, and will that sit within district plans, or will that be a regional council function, what we know about that, but also how you see the modern method of assessment rather than LUC is going to play into the forestry reassessment now around planting limitations on classes 6 and 7, because that could have quite an impact also on the region. So you may not know more, but I'm interested to how you think those things might play out.
Sophie, I can attempt to answer parts of your question. So as far as the special agricultural areas go, I've been involved in a few conversations with MFE around that. At the moment, they were only identifying those 2 areas in Pukekohe and Horowhenua, and not anywhere else. Therefore, our comments were at a more high level, where we suggested that these, if they should be implemented, they should be implemented at a national level, because that we could get as policy planners into the conversation about what is special, where is special for whom, and then the more modern methods. I think we made a comment on that because as an organisation at the moment there is a piece of work being undertaken to, based on our more up-to-date SMAP mapping, to remap our LUC for the region using SMAP. So that would differ from the national level, and I'm not sure how that would impact on the forestry exercise and being away from 6 and 7, you say, on farming. But we're definitely interested in that because we are aware of, let's just say, the limitations of the LUC mapping, the baseline LUC mapping that we have at the moment, because we know its age and its limitation.
Exactly. Thank you.
Anybody else with questions?
Got a Chair. Look, this question is about something that isn't in that paper, and it's possibly the answer is because it's pretty fresh, but I'm looking for guidance on the implications of it. So yesterday it was became public that the Resource Management Consenting and Other Systems Changes Amendment Bill is being modified to give the Minister power to change council plans or policy statements. Are staff in a position to comment on that and explain how that may relate to the situation we currently find ourselves in terms of our existing plans and our ability to change them, please?
You've beat me to the punch then. I was saving that for our stat ad paper, but we can speak to it. So yes, that was announced yesterday, or we saw the detail of it yesterday. I'll save all the details till we get to that paper, but my understanding is that those powers, from my read, expire at the end of 2027. So taking a guess at kind of, I think, what the intention is behind that is that councils couldn't put in place changes that don't align with the central government direction until all of that direction has come into place as kind of a placeholder almost.
So is this the discussion we're having now, or shall I hold?
Yeah, hold it till later, but yeah.
Okay, lovely, thank you. Sorry, Tanya, you had a question.
Yeah,
and
just
then Martin.
quickly, just going to Papakainga.
Yes.
In respect of certain types of Māori land allowing up to 10 homes, what are they deeming certain types? That's my first question. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tanya, there is, so within the discussion document, there is a large list of what
What certain
specified.
types
Yeah,
is.
Māori land,
Okay, I didn't see that.
Yeah, sorry, I don't have it right in front of me to list it all.
Yeah, okay. I can get that though, You
Yes.
can send that to us?
Yes.
Yeah. Also looking for guidance around mitigation regarding areas of natural hazard risk, because I know that you can build Papakainga anywhere in New Zealand.
Yeah.
It's said in a broad statement, so just looking for some guidance on what they're referring to around that mitigation in natural hazard areas.
Yeah, we can bring that information, or we can get that information to you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Martin?
Yeah, look, thank you. A bit of a comment and then a question at the end of it, but it's obviously around natural hazards, which the previous paper, whatever we do for this new revised chapter, is going to have to presumably give effect to the new national direction. I must say I was rather dismayed to read the suggested natural policy statement, natural hazards. I do like the brevity, and I've talked about that before, but the objective is that land use controls are proportionate to the level of risk, and that local authorities must proportionately manage risk, including significant risk, based on the level of natural hazard risk. And okay, well, that sounds fair enough, but what's that actually code for? If you read the discussion document, listen to this. New Zealand is a growing country. Inappropriately risk-averse approaches to natural hazards may prevent much-needed new development, even though it could be designed or located to withstand hazards. Targeted feedback has revealed, this is from developers, that some local authorities have been too risk-averse. And I'm like, you should see what I've written here. There are 3 letters beside it, and the first 2 are W and T. And, you know, I was thinking about this natural hazard policy statement giving us a mandate to be firm, to stand up to the development community and say, as we did with Riverbend Road, for example, no, we're not doing that anymore. That's done. We've learnt from Gabriel. So my comment is, thank you for the submission, by the way, saying we feel that greater direction or clarity of direction around avoiding development to give us would help us defend our position. We got the flood review panel saying we should prohibit subdivision in new housing in flood risk areas. My comment is, do you think this is going to be that platform we need to tackle this issue? And if not, what are we doing about it? Thank you.
To your question, we have been very, very, very clear in our feedback to MFE that we do not feel that the MPS gives us the power that we need. They are alive to that fact, and we have expressed a certain level of discomfort or disappointment with that. So I think what we have submitted both formally and informally through consultation with MFE has absolutely mirrored your sentiments.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nicola. Any other questions?
I have a.
Thank you. We'll make that the last question. Thanks,
There's so
Michelle.
much, because it's pretty much environmental degradation across the board. And I was feeling anxious before, now I'm feeling ill, because there's a degradation of the Māori to us. But one thing that sort of catches my eye, there's so many. But the one about nitrogen, synthetic nitrogen and farmers, there's an amendment about how farmers report the use of synthetic nitrogen fertiliser, and one of the options is they can repeal the reporting requirement. So if you don't know what they're putting in there, how are you going to deal with it? And just the nitrogen fertiliser and how that affects water as well as phosphate. But, and when I think, I'm thinking Mike Joy. I'm thinking Mike Joy and I'm thinking colon cancer. We're talking about a lot of health issues at the moment at this table because that impacts human beings. Now, a lot of the water around here is drawn from wells. That's going to affect people's drinking water. It's bad enough, there's the degradation, but now we're just going to just give a free licence to make us all sick. So, yeah.
So
I don't envy.
So to that point, in our submission back to MFE, we thought that the reporting requirements were kept, but that they just aligned them with the other reporting requirements with the property owners. So we thought that they were remained.
In your submission.
Ka pai. All right, thank you, team. Thank you, everyone, for your questions. So we'll go to the recommendation, which is that the RPC receives and notes the National Direction Package update. Can I have a mover? Thank you, Sophie. And are you the seconder, Thompson? Thank you. Whakaai tātou? Aye. Kia ora. Thank you for that. Next item.
All right, so the next item is our freshwater visions and values, and hopefully this is a bit of a happier item for you, Michelle. At the point of writing this paper, we were just waiting on the last report to come through, so that's why they weren't attached to this, but we absolutely can circulate those through to everyone. But this work was started under the NPSFM 2020, and it was a bit of work that we were doing to partner with the PSGEs to help provide that work that we needed under the NPSFM to identify those freshwater visions and values. However, at the time of writing this, we had the amendment bill come through, and there had been that pause or that inability for us to progress freshwater until December 2027. However, because we'd got underway and we still saw the value with the contracts and the outcomes, we progressed them. And so on the screen you can see the 5 that we have received, noting that the 4th one along for Mohaka represents the 3 PSGs along that catchment as well. So that's a significant piece of work, and we just wanted to say thank you to the PSGs for that work and partnering with us in that. And there's a lot of value in those reports, and we just wanted to recognise the mahi that has gone in behind the scenes and all of the people that have been involved in that work. We did invite the PSGs to present this work, however, because just like us, they have been under an avalanche of RM reform and submissions that have been due. They just asked that we delay that a little bit, so we've all got a little bit more breathing time, but I think it's something that we would all like to share with you all, just because there's some really neat work that has been done in there. And then probably just as we move into the new system, we're having conversations in the JTOG at the moment about how we can best use those reports in the new system going forward, and what could they look like in a spatial planning or expressing those values in a spatial sense.
Thank you. Questions, Michelle?
I'm sure our one's been.
Yes, it's in now. Yes, it was just.
No.
Yeah,
I remember passing it on the board. So
Yep, it should be the blue one.
The blue one there. On the,
Lovely, thank you. Any other questions,
Yeah,
Tanya?
just acknowledging again, I'm giving out a few bouquets today, but being positive. But I just want to thank you, and also our technical teams members that are on the JTOG. And I just caught up with Gareth before, and he's behind me, and they're doing a bloody lot of work in there, and amazing work. So hats off to you guys, and also to our people that are attending these. And also Gareth speaks highly of the interaction that's going on here. So kia ora to you guys. Yeah.
Lovely, thank you. San?
Kia ora, Chair. Look, just wondering when these reports will come to this committee.
So we can circulate them to you now that we've got all of them. We can circulate after this one, and we can work with the JTOG as to when they would like to come, and we can figure out a time to present.
Is it intended that they become public documents?
Yes.
That's an interesting practice.
Yeah, they're not to be reproduced though. So the idea with the contracts was that they were for this work and that the PSGEs hold intellectual property.
Intellectual property is built into the contracts. So if they were to be reused or were wanting to be used for other purposes than for what HBRC has them for, then you need to approach the individual PSGE and speak with them about that.
Chair, could I just clarify the reason for the question is that there's a lot of important information from a governance point of view, there's a lot of important information that needs to be understood. And so not only does it need to be understood in decision making, even though it only has a certain weight at the moment, the information is being produced, council has invested in it, so there may well be, as with these things, sometimes some issues of sensitivity of some of the data potentially. If that has to be managed, so be it. But I think at least, and if it has to be in a PX session, they should still come to this body at least. Thank you.
Kia ora, San. I think that's probably a good idea, something to work through, because each of those contracts were negotiated with their own terms, right?
Through you, Chair, they are public documents, so we can't, I don't think we can withhold them. They would be legitimable. We can prevent them from, it simply is just saying to the public, these documents are here, but if you want to reference them, please contact the PSGs directly.
Thank you. Just a quick part time. Is the agreement between the PSG or the JTOGs group?
The PSGE.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to confirm that because Manahouri, are supporting our JTOG members to write this information and approve this information. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, so on that one then, if that's all, the recommendation is that we receive and note the Freshwater Vision and Values staff report. Can I have a mover? Anybody? Thank you, San. And seconder, Michelle. Whakaai tātou? Aye. Thank you. All right, on to item 8, which is an update on policy and Māori partnerships joint projects. Thank you. That's you, Jack. And Shelley, is it? Yeah. Kia ora.
So again, this is a follow-up to the paper that we brought you in May, and is just really an update of the work that has been undertaken in this space since then. I'll hand over to Jack and Shelley.
Kia ora koutou, aku rangitira, ngā mihi motu wā I konei, tēnei rā, e mihi tēnei ki a koe mai, ko motu karakia, mo te whakatūwhiri I tō tātou hui, I runga I te karakia, ko Waimawa, ko Jack Smith Ballingua hau, he pauahurea me te kai whakatire I tēnei kaingira, ko Shelley tēnei.
So this is just an update paper, and we brought this kaupapa to RBC in May, and our focus then was mainly on iwi hapu management plans and how we were handling those the staff were handling them within council. Since then, we've expanded to look at the wider suite of instruments under the RMA, and I guess in the current climate, there has been an increased uptake and interest in all of the RMA instruments. So we are looking at a number of iwi hapu management plans that are possibly going to come into the council that are sitting around the region in various stages. We have received 4 mana whakahono initiations. And we've also got our existing iwi hapu management plans and MOUs that we need to ensure are given their due weight as well. So this is really operational level improvements to the system. We've developed a dual workstream approach between policy and Māori partnerships to get through the work. So examples, I guess, of what we've been working on is policy. We've been doing some templates to make sure that when we're looking at, say, the iwi hapu management plan, we're doing it consistently, no matter who picks it up. We're looking at things like website improvements, presentations to other teams to raise cultural awareness of these documents. And Maori Partnerships is really leading the work for the integration of documents to the wider organisation. Policy, I sit more on making sure that everything is RMA compliant and on that sort of strategic approach. So to working up to this, Jack, I'll hand over to him, has been developing a framework so that across all of those different legislative documents, we're handling everything consistently. So I'll hand that to you, Jack, to explain that one.
Cool, thank you, Shelley. So you might remember back in May, I presented this slide as a part of a presentation to talk about how we were treating specifically iwi hapu management plan. What we've worked out as we progress through this mahi is that this approach actually applies to all mana whenua documents that are handed to us that have visions, values, expectations, things that the organisation as a whole should know. So what we've done since then is expanded out the scope of this framework to cover not only iwi hapu management plans, but also agreements like MOU and mana whakahonua arohe, as well as CIAs and other cultural value documents. The approach at a high level is this, but what is going to fall out underneath is specific guides to the organisation for these specific documents, understanding that they all need to be treated differently. We just heard from Katrina that IP has a part to do with it, so things like CIA and cultural values documents will be treated differently from iwi hapu management plans, which are to be spread wide and be readily available to the organisation and to the public. So today it's just a recap an update of where this mahi has progressed. At the moment, we have a draft framework currently sitting. We have guides all ready to go for the organisation. Shelley and I and Nathan as well have been providing advice around mana whakahonua arohe and how they are just things to consider, and then also how the organisation ought to take these documents at a point where we've settled. Obviously, that's future thinking, but the overall goal there on the screen is to have these documents and what they're saying integrated throughout the organisation so that Māori and everybody can see te ao Māori and mātauranga and a Māori approach integrated into everything we do, and that overall goal being integration. But you can see the steps to it. So it is a bit of a long burn. Back to you, Shelley.
So upcoming actions we've got on the books is to finalise the framework and those documents that fall out of it. We're completing our priority task to improve internal systems. That's things like the website being updated. We'll continue, of course, to support the mana whakahone process where we're called upon. And we're also considering the OAG report recommendations, just how they can be brought into this work at that practitioner level. So the focus areas, like I said, was Maori Partnerships, cultural capability and iwi hapu engagement, and policy, RMA compliance and strategic alignment. And we're hoping that this work will place us in a position to respond proactively to the legislative reform and keep honouring our obligations to mana whenua in the process.
Taue, thank you. Does that complete your presentation? Can I open up for questions? Thompson, kia ora, and then Martin and Tanya.
Mana whakahono arohe agreements, iwi and hapu management plans, the respective MOUs with the PSTE, what am I missing here?
CIA.
CIAs, cultural values reports, those types of, they're all good communication tools, right? But is it possible to see, I don't know, one pager or a flow chart of how these documents interact with each other?
For you, Chair, yep, absolutely. We could bring one of those back to you. That would be a problem.
Yeah, it's,
Absolutely.
Thank you. Martin?
No, I'm fine.
Was it Tanya?
Yeah.
Sophie, sorry.
Kia ora, I just want to say thank you because I think that dual work stream is obviously working between Māori partnerships and policy, and Māori partnerships driving some of this mahi. But just, yeah, it would be good to see a matrix so we're not duplicating, and our people aren't duplicating the same work around, because that mana whakahono process has been around Maira and all, and then we've got statement of cultural values, and we've got cultural impact assessments, and then we've got frameworks, and then we've got a whole lot of stuff going on. So it'd be actually quite good to have a look at efficiencies in this area too. So you're not, contracting out for the same work all the time, because we might save us ratepayers some money. But I just want to say thank you. But I also wanted to ask, did you send out the OAG report recommendations? Because they're not in here. But have they been sent out? Because I'd like to see them. They may have been sent out in May, or not. Yeah, but anyway, if you could resend those out to us so we can see what process you're following in respect of those OAG, Office of the Auditor General recommendations. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely, we can do that.
Just a quick one.
So next one was Sophie.
Kia ora, thank you, through you, Chair. Thank you, so interesting, and particularly to hear that list. And Thompson really picked up something for me. We often ask Māori Partnerships team, how can we see the work? How can you show us what's been created? Where are the alignments? And the flowchart is one piece, but what would be really useful for me to understand, these pieces of work actually are informing all the work we do, and to see those related or referenced in any of our documents that are coming, any papers around any of our work, to know that when we bring something on, some of the erosion control work, that's been also informed by one of the fresh water value statements, or a cultural impact report, or a iwi hapu plan. What it means is that we start to see the way that they're actually connecting into our work streams. And I know we hear a lot from, not so much from this table, perhaps more from our Māori committee table. We don't really see ourselves in the work. Where is our value? Where are we providing value? And we know all this work's happening, but it's very hard for it to be visible. So if somehow we can start seeing these referenced into our papers, because I know the work's being done, it would help not only us but also our ratepayers understand the value of our Māori Partnerships team and the body of work that we're using. Is that possible?
So, through you, Chair, we absolutely, as part of this work, is a stock take to start to understand what different parts of the organisation hold, because to Tanya's point earlier, where there's been work done on one project, we don't then want to just go and replicate the work for the next project. We understand how precious resources are in the PSGE space. So one is from an organisational point to understand what we actually already have, and then not just know that we have a document, but actually understand which parts of the organisation and our work that it speaks to. And the second thing that we've been looking at is we've got a local map layer called Pātaka, which we use as a repository to keep kind of boundaries and settlement areas, etc. But whether it's through that or whether it's through our spatial planning, how do we attach in these spatial kind of documents or these spatial kind of representations links to this, so that if somebody's out in the field, they get a little alert and it says, this is what this relates to, or I'm doing some work in this catchment. Well, actually, we did a report back in 2017, so absolutely, yeah.
And through you, Chair, if I may, tēnā koe, Councillor says absolutely. Frequently, there is mahi that looks at current iwi hapu management plans that is informed by cultural impact assessments and cultural value assessments that we don't highlight sufficiently in the papers that come to this table. So thank you for the recommendation. I will take that.
Good to know, Donna. Any more questions? Jenny, sorry.
Kia ora. I'm just mindful of the fact too that through the Hawke's Bay Regional Planning Committee Act 2020, there are specifications, and PSGs have treaty settlement that were quite specific. It would be good to reconcile the work that you do against the treaty legislation, which is what drives everything. And each PSG has their own specificities in those treaty settlements. So even the managing of agreements, how you utilise information, what areas are specific to a PSG are all in those treaty legislations. So as part of the work, I understand, I would recommend that you look at those and then directly reference it back to the Hawke's Bay RPC 2020 Act, because that way we cover all our bases as a regional council and regional planning committee, and when we respond to anything, it's predicated on legislation and it keeps us safe. Well, as safe as we can be today. Kia ora.
Thanks, Jenny. Just following on from the questions raised about the Attorney General's report. Attorney General, Auditor General. Auditor. Yeah, sorry, Auditor. My recollection, I haven't been through it, is that when it was presented, that it found that by and large the public sector wasn't upholding treaty settlements that had been promised and obligations that had been promised weren't being complied with, sort of thing. And I note in here it said something about we have 23 also commitments related to treaty settlements. I just wondered, it would be really helpful to understand what were the findings and how do we rate ourselves against that.
Tēnā koutou. Just to revert back to the findings of the review, in high level, it recognised 80 settlements across the country with over 12,000 commitments identified through treaty settlement acts that came through. There were 9 recommendations that were put forward through the report, and of the 9, 4 of them targeted all of public services kind of organisations. Of those 4 recommendations, there are 2 that we're actively working on within the organisation at the moment. The first 2 were reviewing how we meet and monitor the treaty settlement commitments that sit within the responsibility of Hawke's Bay Regional Council. The second was to ensure that our annual reporting mechanisms and also what comes through our formal annual reports talks specifically to settlement commitments, and so that is a work in progress at the moment. There were 2 recommendations directly for the CEOs of public service entities, and that development should be made readily available and actively enabled for them to better understand what implementation of treaty settlement commitments are. One piece of work that we went through in informing the review, so Hawke's Bay Regional Council were a participant in the review with the Office of the Auditor General, was to stock take the 23 or so, number off the top of my head, treaty settlement commitments that Hawke's Bay Regional Council is responsible for, and we have that data available, and that's kind of what we're progressing our works off. Additional to that, there have been some discussions happening directly with post-settlement governance entities around their treaty settlement acts and legislations and how they would like to work together so that our understandings of what good outcomes are consistent. Fine for Hawke's Bay Regional Council to understand from our perspective only what those outcomes are, but we're looking forward to continuing the discussions with settlement entities.
Taupai, thank you.
Kia ora.
Sir.
Kia ora, Chair. Look, I'll get to a question, but it's slightly circuitous. Firstly, I think it's worth stepping back and reflecting on how far we've come in the last little while. More than a decade ago, as part of the TANK process, I advocated for a levy on water, effectively a kaitiakitanga levy. So the problem we had at that point was that mana whenua, tangata whenua, input was and is required into planning processes, but that wasn't resourced. And so the thought behind my advocacy at that point was that it's logical to tag that as a cost of doing business for commercial water users and for the water user community generally. The way things have panned out, going forward 10 years, is we now have a well-resourced, functioning ecosystem where mana whenua, tangata whenua groups are being resourced not through a levy, but through, in part, contributions from council to do great work. And it's mainly focused on the policy work at this point. So that relationship has come a long way. Allied to that, our relationship and working with mana whenua, tangata whenua over science and mataranga has come a long way. So we've got this parallel track about the science, and particularly in relation to fresh water. And what I'm wanting to flag and get to the question is that this has created, in my view, an unintended consequence that we have different levels of understanding in different parts of the community about what the current level of science understanding of the problems that we face. And so the practical reality out in the community is that they are working with different and often dated data sets now that are informing their view about what their obligations are or ought to be. So I think it was appropriate to bring up that there is a job of work for council to consider how they can try and fill that gap, not to stop working with mana whenua, tangata whenua, particularly in that science and mataranga space, but get that information out into the community so that the community so that we're all working on the same data sets. There's a classic example in the tank process at the moment where most of the commercial water user community has no idea about the current science that's being discussed because it's privileged and tied up in mediation processes. So you can't have rational discussions in the community about what the problems are and what the solutions ought to be. We need to find a way to get through that so everyone's working with the same data set. So my question is, how can we get everyone working with the same data set to make better decisions? Thank you.
Thank you, Sam.
Big question.
Hook us straight to the top for that one.
Big question. Look, I think where you're absolutely got your finger on is data and information, be it mātauranga generated, science generated, is powerful. And so the more that it can be in people's hands with the appropriate safeguards, the better informed people are. So I don't have an easy answer for that question right now, but certainly internally for us as an organisation, what you're seeing today is a step to making sure that we as an organisation are aligned internally, and when somebody provides something of really value to us, it doesn't just sit on the shelf. It actually then becomes something that we can use in the everyday work of the organisation. I agree there's a bigger job then to think about how that goes out to the wider community, but I don't have an easy answer at that stage, but good challenge to raise. Yeah. Kia ora, Chair. Can I just point out the reason for asking that question was not to expect an immediate answer. It's a difficult problem, but to highlight the practical issue. And if you want change, people need to be working with the same data set, and it's simply not happening out there at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Ricky, sorry to put you on the spot. I just wondered if you had any thoughts about the question around data sets or anything that's been discussed here in this particular item.
No, I agree with Councillor. I think it's critical. And that's part of the big barrier to the RM reforms that's happening in the moment and all this other government policy. It's hard to see the data that's informing some of those decisions that are being made. I suspect there is no data in some of them, to be fair, but I think if we can, and the process we've been talking about is great, in getting these documents, managing them appropriately, we've also got to be aware that those documents are statements in time and they can inform a position, but you've got to go back and work with the PSG to clarify in a specific situation how that would apply. It's like everything's open to interpretation, right? So whatever's said in the vision and value stuff has got to be informed by specific thing that you're dealing with at any point in time, and make sure that those things are lined up, and the iwi views are the same as the council's interpreting those things to be the statements in those papers. That actually, that's how iwi view those specifics of that particular process or policy being dealt with. So just an ongoing conversation, I think, that's the critical part. It's not okay, I'll read the book and then I know the answer. It's I read the book, so I'm slightly more informed. I can have a better conversation.
I'd like to endorse that too. So I think from the genesis of the RPC 10, 12 years ago, we didn't have conversations about kaupapa Māori. And when they came up was usually in litigation, once something had gone through a consent process, and then next minute all this information's coming forward from tangata whenua who were then in court. And so we were all thinking it was a much better idea that in the front end of the process of making the plans and policies, that information is shared at that time. So we might not reach agreement, but at least we'll have a much better understanding and hope of reaching agreement if we know more about each other. So I think we've come a long way in that time to actually, the socialising stuff, it's actually stuff we expect to be talking about now, whereas before it was a factor that might come up in a piece of litigation. So I think your point's very good, and thank you, Ricky. If there's no other comments, then I think we can probably move this recommendation to receive the update on policy and Māori partnerships joint projects. Can I have a mover? Thank you, Tanya, and a seconder. Must be you, Charlie, is it? Must be. Yeah, must be. I saw a nod.
Wake up, Charlie.
All right, thank you. So hang in there, we've got just over 10 minutes. We've got two short-ish items. Thank you, Jack, sorry.
Thanks, Jack.
So we've got policy projects update. I wasn't sure who was...
I'll kick us off.
Yeah, great, thank you.
So the next two items are our regular standing items. This one is the policy projects update. Just a really brief overview of what is going on and the impacts of the plan stop. Plan Change 9 Tank continues through the Environment Court process. We are currently preparing evidence and expecting hearings in May 2026. The tank plan change is not affected by the plan stop because it's already in a hearing stage, so that continues. The flood protection bylaw that was referenced earlier, work continues on that, and it's not affected under the plan stop as it's an LGA or Local Government Act provision, not an RMA provision. The MPS for urban development, that work continues while trying to understand the next steps and just understanding it's likely that will continue on because of the housing growth element, but just wanting to make sure, so once we see a bit more detail. The MPS for highly productive land, which is the mapping of the LUC 1, 2 and 3, that is a little bit trickier. It is stopping, but we knew that was being paused because there was a new version coming in. So there's no changes there. Spatial planning preparation, work continues on that. We held a hui last month with all of the councils and PSGs in the region. It was really productive, really well received. There was some great actions that were proposed under that, so work will continue, and that's at an officer level, so really thinking through what do we already know, what can we start working on. There's a very genuine appetite to try and get as much work underway as soon as possible to give ourselves the longest runway because the deadlines are tight. And then just to update that, we have received mana whakahono arohi from the 4 groups listed there below, and the initial hui are underway in process of being scheduled. And that is basically the quick rundown of that, unless there's any questions.
Any questions?
Well, nothing heavy. I just want copies of all the presentations because you summarise it really beautifully.
It should be on Stella for you already, Jenny. We sent it through to governance at the end of last week.
Okay, thank
I'll
you.
help you find it.
But yeah, we can, but if you can't find it, let us know and we can see.
I know, I found it. Thank you.
Perfect.
Lovely. Question from me on the mana whakahonua rohe, might be to you. What do you think is prompting all of this, now having these, and how many have been done nationally?
Tēnā koe, Chair. I think we have seen a lot of advice coming from Papa Pounamu to Māori entities and groupings, hapu, PSGs alike across Aotearoa at the moment to utilise tools that are available to us to make use of advisory bodies that are available to Māori as well, to strengthen positions and aspirations in unsteady times, if I may, particularly when we're unsure of what may lie ahead of us at the moment. So that what I have seen is huge activations of Māori technical experts coming together in many forums, whether it's through activation of the likes of Papa Pounamu or through our whanaunga Tina Pro and lots of mahi that she's doing in those spaces as well. So he mihi tēnei kia rātou, kia tātou for that mahi that's moving. So that's my belief as to why we're seeing mana whakahonua rohe arrive to us. And there was a reference earlier that it is a tool that has been available to both councils and Te Iwi Māori alike for some time now, and good to see it being utilised in ways that can help Māori realise and activate those aspirations of theirs. I have recently come back from Ngā Kairapu, which is the special interest group for Māori partnerships units across the 16 regional and unitary councils in Aotearoa. And my understanding is that if we're to break it down into individual initiations, so between one entity and one council, there's somewhere in the count of 40 plus initiations that have happened nationally at this time. A lot of them have come together as several iwi or multi-iwi and multi-council agreements or processes that will take place at the moment. So have spoken to whanaunga or from Bay of Plenty Regional Council down to Te Taui who have all received some form of initiation in one way or another. Councils will work with their partners in their local context to understand what the best way for them to move forward is, and that's the stage we're in at the moment. So I look forward to the initiating conversations that we will get to.
Lovely, thank you. Any other questions on that one?
Just on your last question, was how many have actually been completed and done successfully across the country?
4 is my understanding. So there are 4 active mana whakahonua arohe across Aotearoa at the moment.
I remember when it was 1 for about 10 years.
Yeah. And look, there isn't a formal recording anywhere, but of those that potentially were initiated but did not result in a formal mana whakahonua arohe, I hear of multi-iwi, multi-council relationship agreements that have come out of there. I've heard of memorandum of understanding agreements that have come out of that as well. So I think they have initiated discussions to find something that works best for councils and iwi to have that. So potential that could happen with us.
Hapai, thank you.
There's a few other things.
Yes.
There's joint management agreements, the Waikato River we have with the councils, Taupo District Council's got one or two whare tour. There's other things around. I think the focus on mana whakahonua is driven by the unfriendly atmosphere, I guess, with the central government feeling like we need something formal, whereas before most PSGs and iwi have been happy to just have a relationship with the council and work through that way. Now I think they're feeling like there's a potential that those relationships will be stopped if we don't have a mana whakahonua. If we've got a mana whakahonua, it's much harder to remove that relationship. if we
Formalise
formalise it through
that
this process.
relationship.
Which is why I think you're seeing activation around the country.
Kia ora. Thank you, Ricky, for that. Okay, well, this is our second to last one, so can we have someone to move that we receive and note the policy projects update? Thank you, Jenny, and is that you, Mike? Kia ora, whakaai tātou? Aye. Okay, last item.
All right, so this is our statutory advocacy update for August. So I'll run through these ones quickly and then I'll jump back to Zan's earlier question. So we have had the reforming the resource management system, so that was what we talked to you earlier about, the tranche 2. The bill was expected when we did these slides to pass into law in late August, but we believe now it's looking more like early September. We've also got that program of new and amended national direction, so we're expecting to see those gazetted by the end of 2025. The local government water services bill, that bill's set down for its second reading in Parliament shortly. We are also working on the Napier City Council proposed district plan, so we've made submissions to that. We have the ecosystems hearing tomorrow, and we have the natural hazards hearing and rezoning, on Friday. And then we have the Marine and Coastal Area Act hearings are continuing through 25 and into May 26. So those are the big ones that are on our books. And as I said yesterday, we had the first look at the Amendment Bill number 2 and the changes that they were proposing in that. Some of the key take-homes in that was energy and infrastructure. So if there's any consents received for energy or wood processing activities, where we do sometimes get those around hydro, those consents must be processed within 1 year. They also included the plan making freeze, so that's what we've talked about earlier with the plan stop. There was some introduction of restrictions on reviewing consents around coastal permits until 2030. Also, the points they made earlier around new power for the minister to modify or remove plan provisions via regulations if they hinder economic growth, with those powers expiring at the end of 2027. There was also an announcement around freshwater farm plans, so simplifying the certification and auditing process, clarifying when those plans are required and who can certify or audit them, and the minister will be able to approve the industry organisations for them to do the certification. Also interesting, given the conversation earlier around outdoor burning and fines. So courts can revoke or suspend consents for significant non-compliance, and insurance against fines will now become unlawful, so you can't insure yourself to protect from that, and penalties will be increased up to 1 million for individuals and 10 million for companies. So that's significant. Also, probably a really welcome change after what we've experienced in this region is that there will be emergency response regulations. So there'll be new powers to make temporary regulations after a natural hazard event that can override those normal RMA processes for up to 3 years. So just a quicker way to be able to respond. And then there's just some other little bits in there about transitional provisions about when and how new rules will apply. So that is the latest word on the street.
Any questions, comments, thoughts?
Yeah, I've got a comment.
aspirations?
Thanks for this, just quickly. And, you know, I'm not an environmental lawyer like my learned friend next to me, but but just in respect of this PDP, can you just tell me how many hours and teams of people you've got doing the submissions for that?
Just my team, although we pull expertise in from the relevant teams across the organisation. So whether it's our assets team or our biodiversity team, we've had our coastal scientists working in there as well, our transport team as well.
My point is that it's at huge cost to the ratepayers, and also I'm just saying this because, and I'm raising it because it's at huge cost to us as PSGEs, because we've had to also engage experts and professionals and legals and all sorts of things to look at the PDP here, to make sure that we position ourselves for future, 30, 50 years out. And so I'm just looking at how we can do this better in the future, with the various councils.
Absolutely, and we have started to move with the PSGEs when we're doing the central government submissions to sharing that information, so we can try and, we might not always have a shared position, but at least we're trying to share resources, and I mean, sometimes it's just as easy as sending a draft so that somebody can have a read and think, oh yeah, that's right, and try and make it as efficient as possible.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to make that comment.
I think unfortunately it's the Schedule 1 of the RMA, and once we're on that process, that's what it kind of compels us to do. So that may be something that comes out of the reforms, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Ka pai. Sam.
Tanya, look, just following up on my question before. Could staff come back to us once it's clear what was dropped in Parliament yesterday, and it seems legislation .gov.nz hasn't caught up with it yet, but from newspaper reports it suggests that there are new powers, will be new powers for the Minister to come to leap back into our existing plans if the provisions have negative impact on economic growth, development capacity or employment. It would be nice to know if that's actually the case, so if perhaps you could circulate your understanding of it when it's available.
Absolutely.
Thank you. If there's nothing else, then I think that we're done. So last thing there is to have someone move that we receive and note the statutory advocacy update. Thank you, Sophie. Ben Thompson, thank you. Pakai tātou.
Aye.
Aye. Awesome. Okay, well, maybe just a minute or two over time. Thank you to our staff and our leadership team for providing us with answers and lovely papers. Thank you very much for that. And I might call on Matua Mike. If you did such a fabulous job of opening our hui, would you mind closing our hui for us?
Yeah, just before I do, I'd just like to thank the staff. And as the old people always do, they hook back to, in my day, which was over 25 years ago when I was on the Māori committee. And the chairman of the council at that time was looking down his nose at us, and it was nothing like it is today. And I remember the last CEO said to Tania, what do you really want, Tania? And she said, everything. And he thought she was joking. Me no tātou he, ka huri ki a koe tēnei wā ke te siaki mai a mātou hoki ki o mātou kaina. Nō reira e te whakaminga mati atu koutou mana ke siaki mana mea tōna mate ke jaho ihu kona koutou. Mana whakaare ake te maramatana ake ake. Āmeni.
Āmeni. Kia ora mai.